Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're diving into a pretty radical new paper that claims the answer to the universe's biggest mysteries isn't hiding in a particle accelerator, but in a completely new way of understanding creation itself.
Okay, so at the very heart of modern physics, for what, a century now, has been this epic quest, the search for a unified field theory. It's basically the holy grail of science, a single, elegant idea that could explain absolutely everything, from why an apple falls from a tree to how a star is born.
The whole mystery really begins with four fundamental forces. You can think of them like four totally disconnected clues at some kind of cosmic crime scene. We know what each clue is, but we have no idea how they all point back to a single culprit.
First up, you've got gravity. You know, the thing that keeps our feet on the ground. Einstein famously described it as the actual warping of spacetime. But this new theory throws a massive curveball. What if gravity isn't a fundamental force at all? What if it's just a collective shadow cast by the other forces?
Next up is electromagnetism. This is the force of light, of electricity, of charge. This theory suggests it's not just another force on the list. No, it's the very first crack in a perfect primordial unity. It's the event that introduced positive and negative, light and difference into the cosmos for the first time. Then we have the strong nuclear force, which is basically the cosmic superglue that holds the centers of atoms together. This theory reimagines it as a kind of cosmic memory, a powerful echo of the universe's original unified state, constantly resisting the urge to just fly apart.
And finally, the weak force. This is the engine of change in the universe. It's responsible for things like radioactive decay. And in this view, it's the force that literally writes time into the fabric of reality, allowing the universe to evolve and to become everything we see today.
So, for decades, right, the smartest people on the planet have been trying to unite these four forces. But the leading theories, well, they've all kind of hit a brick wall, which really suggests we might be missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
I mean, think about the big ones, like string theory, which sees reality as these tiny vibrating strings, or loop quantum gravity, which imagines space itself is made of these little discrete loops. They're brilliant, incredible ideas. But, and this is a huge but, they both share a fundamental flaw. They assume space-time already exists. They start their story in the middle, without ever explaining where the stage for all this drama even came from.
Yeah, exactly. The paper argues that these theories are just describing the consequences, not the actual cause. They can explain the rules of the game brilliantly, but they can't tell you how the rules of the game got written in the first place.
And this is where we get to the heart of the paper's argument. To find the answer, it suggests we need to stop asking the same old question over and over again. We need to ask a completely different one.
And here it is. This is the central shift in thinking. Instead of asking how we can unify the forces, the paper asks, why did they separate to begin with? It completely flips the problem on its head. The focus shifts from trying to glue the pieces of a broken vase back together to figuring out what knocked the vase off the shelf in the first place. So the paper proposes three really profound and, yeah, admittedly philosophical concepts for this origin. First, a state of absolute zero, not temperature, but a perfect pre-physical stillness. Second, divine intentionality, the idea of a cause that exists outside of physical law. And third, primordial light, the very first event that introduced difference and energy into that perfect stillness. And you know, this idea of creation as an act of separation, it echoes through a lot of ancient metaphysical traditions. The paper points to this verse from the Quran, not as literal science, of course, but as a kind of symbolic pointer, a philosophical structure, where a single joined whole is split apart to create the cosmos. Okay, so with this new origin story, one of separation from unity, how does that change how we see the four forces? Well, they're no longer independent players. Now, they're just fractured pieces of a single original whole.
This new perspective completely recasts each of the four forces. Gravity becomes just a shadow of the others. Electromagnetism is the first pulse of separation. The strong force is the memory of cohesion, and the weak force is the engine of change. You see? They're no longer separate forces, but just different facets of a single broken symmetry.
To help visualize this, the paper offers a really powerful metaphor. Imagine a particle is a boat.
Now, it's not sailing on 4 different oceans. It's on one single cosmic ocean, but it's being affected by 4 different currents: the deep pull of gravity from below, the surface waves of electromagnetism, the ropes of the strong force binding it to other boats, and the sudden storms of the weak force that can break it apart. It's all one reality.
And here's what makes this new model so compelling. It doesn't just stop at the 4 forces, it also offers these fresh, really elegant perspectives on some of the biggest unsolved puzzles in cosmology today. From this viewpoint, the Big Bang is no longer a chaotic explosion, but an orderly transition from perfect symmetry. The arrow of time isn't a march toward randomness, but simply a measure of how far we've drifted from that original unity. And maybe most fascinating of all, dark matter and dark energy might not be new, exotic substances at all, but just lingering traces of that original unified field.
All of this brings us to the paper's pretty profound conclusion. It suggests that the search for a unified theory might be less about finding a final equation and more of a philosophical quest into the very nature of reality itself. I mean, think about it. Our equations are brilliant. They're amazing at describing the universe as it is. But what if they're just the wrong tool for describing the moment of creation itself? How can you use the rules of the game to describe how the game was invented in the first place? This leads to a really radical proposition. The unity we're all searching for won't be found in an equation because it is the very source from which all our equations emerge to begin with. And that leaves us with one final, provocative question to think about. What if the theory of everything isn't a formula at all, but a story? The story of how perfect, simple unity gave birth to the beautiful, complex universe we call home.